Hi everyone, really happy to be here. Thank you all for coming. So I'll start with talking a bit about our company. So as you can see, we are a French company based in Paris, and we do mobile development. We are a consultancy, so we do different applications for different clients, and we're part of the Theodor group, same as Theodor UK. And I'm the co-founder and CTO of the company. So a bit of context, we have launched the company at the end of 2014 with me and my colleague Baptiste, and we are two. Today we have a technical team of about 70 developers doing mobile development, and we are more than 120 in the company with design teams, products teams, and all of that. And we have a pretty long history with React Native. So I don't know how many of you recall this F8 conference at which React Native was unveiled. But we started doing React Native a bit after, like in October, because our company was always focused on multi-platform development. And the first version of React Native that has been open sourced was iOS only, so it wasn't multi-platform yet. We waited for it to be published for Android in September, and then we did our first project in October. And at the beginning, we launched our company focusing on Cordova Ionic stack, and we moved to React Native totally in February 2016. So a problem I would like to talk to you about is a problem that many mobile developers find. Not everybody, because some teams are really big, like 100 developers big, but most of mobile teams are quite small. What I've seen in the French community, that most of the mobile teams are between 2 if they are doing hybrid development, multi-platform development, and 6 for small native teams. So we have most of teams who are between 2 and 6. And the problem we have is that we need to make good architecture choices in our projects. So what is architecture, software architecture? There are many definitions. One definition I have found is that these are the decisions you wish you could get right early in a project. So for us, in environments such as React Native, a lot of different choices. We love the ecosystem, it's very dynamic, you have a lot of choice, but which one do you choose? It's not really that obvious. And small teams do not have the time to research each and every technology. So if you're a member of a small team, you probably choose something that looks cool. If you did a bit of due diligence, you try to find something that is actively maintained. It may not be. And then you go with it and you hope for the best. Given that the choice is difficult to change, you live with the consequences of what you did. So at what moment in the company this year, I told myself, we have quite a big mobile team, and this team generates a lot of learnings. With every project we start, we need to choose the good technical stack, so people talk with each other, they try to find the best solution for the client, and yeah, this is not the whole team, but 70 mobile developers have a lot of these interesting discussions. And I asked myself, could we open source knowledge? Could we share our choices with all the good sides and bad sides of this? Like, these are our choices, they are subjective. This would also mean exposing ourselves to some critique. This would also mean maybe some publicity for my company. So we tried to really take all of this into account. And I told myself, let's do this. I tried to gather my team, understand the choices they are doing, and try to open source it to share with the community. So that's what we did. And one of the inspirations for me was this document, this technology radar from ThoughtWorks. I've been following it, I think this one is from 2013. I think this might be the first one I've read, maybe the previous or following one. But this was a great inspiration. I learned a lot from this document as a developer. I found the content really high quality. So I told myself, this is a way of sharing our knowledge I really appreciate. So what can you find in a radar? I've chosen Flutter because it just fitted good, fitted well in the slide. You find blips. So blips because you have a blip on a radar when the plane arrives. And blips are technologies or techniques or development practices. It's a pretty large term. So we can just speak about our decisions, whatever they are, and a recommendation level. That's all you need for a radar. Just things you talk about and what's the level of recommendation. So adopt is like, for us, it's go ahead, just do it. Close your eyes and trust us. Trial, you should try it and it should work. Assess means like, yeah, this might be interesting, continue exploring. And hold means we shouldn't be doing it, and often we add anymore. These were good choices at some time, and nowadays we have better ones. So these are the 4 categories. So before talking about the result, how did we do it? So I first started by trying to find everything the best I knew in the domain published. There's a lot of content from ThoughtWorks, videos, articles, podcasts, and this gave me a lot of inspiration. So it wasn't like just, hey guys, let's do a radar. And I asked my team for suggestions. We actually have 3 mobile, what we call tribes, technical specialties, React Native, Flutter, and Native. So every team contributed to the radar, and we ended up with 135 suggestions. Also, things that weren't mobile at all, didn't matter. We got too much suggestions because using the timing I found in some ThoughtWorks article, I was confident about discussing 100 of choices in 2 days. So I got more than I asked for. But anyway, we did a 2 days offsite with the leaders of every tribe, some staff engineers, my VP of engineering, principal technologist, and 2 lead devs that had really good insights on technology. This one is Alexander Muro. I think some of you might know him from previous talk on this meetup. And we decided in the end to publish 54 blips. And then we went into 2 months of content creation because we wanted every position to be justified, every blip be an article that anyone could understand. So we did a code review process to make sure that everything was clear. So we have published a website and a PDF white paper that we've shared with the world, mostly our community in France, but I'm coming here today also to show it to you. So this is what it gives for Flutter, for native. We also have a generic category. You see the leader of the category here for every category. So generic one may be interesting for you. We tried to share the best mobile development practices regardless of technology here. Like I think I've already spoke about in a meetup in France, using BPMN to model user interactions, which is a really cool way to do this, and it works really, really well. Instabag for key metrics. So these are the accelerate metrics used for mobile. A bit different, but they still do work. Yeah, we got crazy with CRDT, I know. And you don't look at this one. I got a bit of controversy there. And we have React Native. So I will explain some choices later. And in the PDF you can find on the website, there's an article for every one of these choices. So under the hood, some examples of what we did. So let's adapt React query. Okay, are there still some teams here that do not use React query? No. Great. This may be too obvious, but this is one of the choices where for every blip we voted in the group that chose them, and we had three votes. It should go up, it should go down, it should stay. Four, and the last one was it should be out of the radar, we should not talk about it. So this was one of those that were unanimous, like everybody was convinced that React query is one of the best libraries today to handle queries. Another one, GSI. So my team was really excited about GSI, but we haven't tried it yet at the moment. So a staff engineer, Clément, committed to trying it and giving feedback for the community. So this is our most used open source repository, React Native Image Resizer. It's just a small library to optimize images when you try to like pick one in your gallery and then upload to the server. It dates from 2015, I think. It was one of the first things we did in React Native. And so Clément rewrote the repository using GSI, making 125 changes, modifying 125 files. And we thought that this gave us sufficient knowledge to put it in trial. I think, hey, it went really well for BAM. It has a lot of advantages, so go ahead and try it. Still a lot of hard work, but GSI is great. And then we had Jotai. No idea how to pronounce it in English correctly. So Taiko, he's in love with the library, but we have just tested on one project. So we think it's a really good state management library. And if you read the content, you will wonder why isn't it in trial or adapt? We find that we need to test more. But we believe it's really a good library. So these are like three different situations in which we were when discussing the technology, and we tried to reflect it in the position of every blip and in the content of the article. There were also some blips, a lot, that we didn't keep. So what were the reasons? Some were too obvious for us. We thought that if we publish something, if we work on it, we need some value added, and we need to bring something new to the community or contribute with our voice to an ongoing discussion. We don't think that TypeScript is an ongoing discussion. So there may be some people who don't use it, but the community has settled on the idea that it's a really good choice for React Native. Testing library, great library. Everyone we know uses it. So again, React Native navigation, fast lane, things like this. If you don't use them and you have better alternatives, I would really like to know them for the next radar. Some things that people put in the radar, put in the initial list, and then we thought that this is not an interesting discussion. We had a lot of difficulty because of preemptive memorization. If you have seen Alex's talk, you know that we are trying really hard to have great performance in React Native, and some teams have abused of use memo. Just don't do it, okay? But we don't find it necessary to publish an article about this. And things we would love to talk about, but we are not ready. So, code push in production, we have had multiple bugs because of that, but we don't have a lot of content that would be interesting. We have a zero defect policy at BAM. It's a really hard policy to justify, and a lot of people aren't ready, so we need to have a really good stance on this, and it would just take too much time to publish it. Leak canary, or just, looking for memory leaks in React Native. It would be great to have a solution for this. We don't. And Rust in mobile, so we have one project that uses a Rust library. We find that is really promising. We're not even at the recommendation level yet. So I'd love to be able to talk about it. We are not ready. We were not ready because I also wanted to limit the project in time. It took a few months. One problem that we have found is that React Native is so dynamic that we already had to update some articles during all the additions. So I wouldn't wait longer for this content to be. So let's drill a bit into the React Native recommendations. So Flipper, Hermes, React Query, on Adopt, obviously Explore, Create React Native, using GSI, React Native Web, reanimated, V2. I'm not sure if V3 is already published, but it was ongoing. API validations with run types, storybooks, and things like this. Are on the left side, things we are pretty much behind, and the other ones that are interesting or we should avoid. Styled components. I've seen a project using styled components like today, and we had an interesting discussion about it, but at BAM it's on hold. This is not definitive. Like if something changes, we might go back. So what are two big themes we see in React Native? So the first theme is performance optimization. So we have reached in React Native a stage at which we are not doing proof of concept anymore. We are doing serious applications with React Native, and serious applications need to be performant. So the community and the core team are working on creating good performance tooling and improving performance. So we see GSI, we see Fabric on the core team side, we see Reanimated that's improving, Alex's work on the performance analytics. Callstack have published a new tool for performance also. Flash lists, things like this. So there's a lot of focus on the performance side. This is really cool. And then there's post-Redux phase. So at the beginning of React Native, Redux was the default choice for state management, any state management. Some teams realized pretty quickly that it was abused, but most of the articles, recommendations, whatever in the community were really strongly behind Redux. And we see a lot of new types of state management. So splitting state management between global and local state managements that are dedicated to certain tools like forms and things like this. And there's a lot of interesting things happening in there. Why so? For the same reason as the performance optimization. React Native is important, means we have important applications, means we need to be maintainable. So we need solutions that are working well in the long term. And this is why the whole dynamic here exists. Sorry. So this was a quick overview of the radar, how we did it. Obviously, I didn't want to describe each of Blips because you can find what we think by yourselves by downloading the document. There's no like sign up. We don't ask you for your data. It's just a PDF. If you just download it and send to all your friends, I don't care. Use it. What I'm looking for is that it was a few months of work for me and my team. And I would love to get some feedback. So if you have some, if you read, just drop me an email or tweet at us or whatever, and tell us what you liked, what you didn't, what are the things you do not agree with. On the native side, we had a lot of backlash on our KMM position because we put it in hold. We still stand by the choice, by the way. But any feedback you can give us would be appreciated. So here again, the link to download, and thank you very much. So the question is about zero defect policy. And yeah, to be short, we are trying to set a standard in our team that every defect is fixed right away. So no prioritization, no analyzing whether it's who should take care, things like this. For two reasons. The first reason is that bugs have friends. So if you have found one, the root cause of this bug will create a problem elsewhere. And by trying to solve this bug right away and then looking for the same pattern elsewhere in the code, you will probably fix something more important even if the bug is benign. That's the first part. And the second part is that we use defects as learning opportunities for team. So we have a problem analysis, post-mortem, and process like this for every bug. So I want my teams to be better with every defect. And postponing them makes the analysis hard because it's really hard to analyze old code, recall what we were thinking at the moment, what were the conditions, and things like this. So I try to push my teams to have zero bugs in stock, not resolved in the teams. And this creates a lot of backlash, notably from product teams who want new features, notably for bugs that are not impacting a lot of users or with minor impact. So this is where this is controversial. I have seen a few articles on the internet that are having the same stance, like every team should have zero bug policy. We are not alone there, but I'm not sure it's really a common practice. So Libsodium is like a native library. You can use it wherever you want. You can use it in React Native if you create a bridge. You can use it in Flutter. And what we find is that it's one of the best crypto solutions today for any mobile application, actually. So yeah, I hope that in future generations of the radar, because we are planning to do an update next year, we'll have less of this. But for me, this reflects that a lot of those things are like our processes or things that we invented, we created at BAM and in our teams. So this was also a way for my team to showcase the things they were proud of. And a lot of those is process. It's like development process more than technology. So it's easier to analyze process according to different technologies because the process may stay the same. Like QRQCs is just what I was talking about, postmortems on every bug. And, it fits for everything. So we tried to put here things that we thought were really, really adapted to every technology. You have some challenges like clean architecture. It's, I think, more mature in React Native than in native development. But either way, we suggest that you should at least try it and observe what does it create. So it's not the same level of maturity for every technology, but the recommendation from our side stays the same.
Was WASM ever on your list?
Sorry?
Was WASM ever on your list?
Not sure. I would need to look that up. Go ahead.
Cool. So I noticed things like React Query, Redux, Jotai. When you're talking about them in this sort of report, are you coming at an angle of like mobile development only, or are you talking about them more generically as libraries?
Do we evaluate from mobile perspective only, or also? That's really interesting for React Native from the web perspective. Mobile mostly. So if switching context to web or using React Native to deploy to mobile and web at the same time gives some perspective or changes our recommendation a bit, we try to include it in our recommendation. So this is something you can find, for example, in styled components. Styled components, in our opinion, make more sense when you're doing web and mobile at the same time. But if you're just focusing on mobile, it's on hold. So we try to bring this subtlety into the content. In React, most of the libraries, most of the recommendation will hold for the web, but we didn't analyze it from this perspective. We do mostly mobile development.
And second question, this seems very hard to maintain. You did mention it briefly, but what's your plan for like maintaining it in the future? Have you considered like open sourcing it, for example, and then moderating what like gets recommended through democratic sort of votes?
Yeah, great question. So it's a question about how we want to maintain it. I would love to have a new edition every 6 months. This is a big investment for my company because the work behind this is like 400 hours of the whole committee invested in this, between the discussion, the content creation, things like this. So it is a bit of an investment, and I'll try to uphold it every 6 months. We'll see. I've had a discussion with a friend who suggested creating a comment section on each page where the community could evaluate if they agree or not with our recommendation. I think that maintaining it as open source would be harder actually than what it is right now, because right now we can have the discussion objectively and in one room at one time between a closed set of people. And maintaining it as open source would require an RFC process and things like this. So I'm not sure it would be more up to date because the process may be heavy, intense, and then yeah, I don't think I would manage that.
So obviously this radar acts as a bit of like a snapshot of the ecosystem at this point in time. But did you find that how many of these technologies and libraries did you find were moving in a specific direction, either towards hold or say adopt?
It's written here. This is the summer 22 edition. So we tried to mention that it's a snapshot from the summer. So Some are moving, like Reanimated is clearly evolving. The V3 version 3 is, I don't recall if it's already published, but it was in heavy development at the time. Fabric, this is something we are analyzing from the performance perspective. So there's a lot of dynamic in the Fabric direction. And so yeah, some libraries are moving, some are just being maintained, but are being more and more adopted in the community. I think Jotai is one of those. It's gaining traction. So yeah, I think that in a few months, some recommendations may change. What I have seen ThoughtWorks do in their radar is that if a blip hasn't moved for 2 editions, they just hide it. So the web page we did we have already prepared an history version for each blip that will be updated, and some blip may disappear because like they said, it doesn't make sense to speak about Git all the time. Nobody's using Subversion anymore. And this is something that we will be facing also, given especially that the React Native ecosystem is so dynamic. Thank you.